Happy Thursday, September 4th. I got both the day of the week and the day of the month right. So today we're going to be going over Deuteronomy 15. Talks about the sabbatical year with regard to lending money and to people that you would purchase as bondservants. This is kind of a continuation of the end of chapter 14 with regard to tithing. So in that, what's your relationship with money, especially with regard to your faith? That's what God, I think, was really pushing for with at least these sections, but basically the entire law. Do you trust what God is saying, or do you not? There's a part of this that also ties in with forgiveness, and we can look at that a little too, but let's dive in. So, chapter 15 starts with the sabbatical year. At the end of every 7 years, you shall grant a release. And this is the manner of the release. Every creditor shall release what he has lent to his neighbor. He shall not exact it of his neighbor, his brother, because Yahweh's release has been proclaimed. So this is a way of saying every 7th year, you forgive debts. And in doing so, you remember how God brought Israel out of Egypt. Of a foreigner you may exact it, but whatever of yours is with your brother, your fellow Hebrew, your hand shall release. But there will be no poor among you. Again, he's saying, if you do this, people aren't going to be in poverty. For Yahweh will bless you in the land that Yahweh your God is giving you for an inheritance to possess. If only you will strictly obey the voice of Yahweh your God, being careful to do all this commandment that I commanded you today. And he's saying, hey, if you do these things, if you trust me, you're going to be blessed. There's not going to be poverty. You're going to have an attitude of giving and of forgiving. A lot of people will look at the law and say, oh man, it's terrible. This is a terrible way to live. It sucks. There's kind of a heavy weight to it. However, I think we all want to live in a society where people help each other, where people forgive each other. What kind of a society do you want to live in? One that's inspired by atheism, by Marxism, or by, you know what? You have faith in God. You forgive each other. And that shows up in how you treat each other monetarily and in other ways. If among you one of your brothers should become poor, maybe there's a bad crop, maybe he made bad decisions. It doesn't really matter. It just says he became poor. In any of your towns, you shall not harden your heart or shut your hand against your poor brother, but you shall open your hand to him and lend him sufficient for his need, whatever it may be. Take care lest there be an unworthy thought in your heart and you say, the 7th year, the year of the release is near. Then your eye look grudgingly on your poor brother and you give him nothing. Because then he's going to cry out to God and God's going to hear it and maybe withhold your blessings. This has been said a few times. If you trust God, this is how things are going to go. If you have faith, it must lead to action. You don't just get to say, oh yeah, I trust him, and then not help someone who needs it. For there will never cease to be poor in the land. Therefore I command you, you shall open wide your hand to your brother, to the needy, to the poor in your land. He's saying, if you do this, this is what's going to happen, but we know you're not going to. So there's going to be poor. Kind of a bad omen, but a sign of human nature too. If your brother, a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, is sold to you, they will serve 6 years, and in the 7th year you shall let them go free. When you let them go, they don't go empty-handed. You will furnish him liberally out of your flock, out of your threshing floor, out of your winepress. As Yahweh has blessed you, you shall give to them. You shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and God redeemed you. Therefore I command you this day, if he says to you, I will not go out from you, because he loves you and enjoys working for you, and you've been a good boss, in other words. Then there was a sign for someone who willingly stayed as an employee or a bondservant as a slave, however you want to put it. You shall take an awl, put it through his ear into the door. So he's going to have a big hole, I'm guessing in the lobe. And then he will be your slave forever. To your female slave you will do the same. It shall not seem hard to you when you let him go free from you, for at half the cost of a hired worker he has served you 6 years. So Yahweh your God will bless you in all that you do. Now, we don't generally in America get to look at slavery in a way that's at all positive because of how slavery went in America. It was terrible. I think there's some false beliefs regarding slavery that people believe that can influence that, but I do think slavery in America is pretty terrible. I think if Americans had read the Bible and applied it, maybe slavery wouldn't be viewed as a bad thing, but as a safety net. Because that's kind of what it was. They didn't just sell themselves for no reason. They became poor. They were impoverished. And in this way, becoming a bondservant, you worked for 6 years and then you got to go free. That was a safety net. That would be similar to the year of the Sabbath year, the year of Jubilee, where all the land goes back to the original owners, that family. This was a safety net for people who are poor. I really do think that slavery that happened in the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th centuries was awful. I think that the racism that continues from that is terrible. But it's also not what this was. The servitude here was the safety net. They wouldn't sell themselves all willy-nilly. They were impoverished. They couldn't eat. They couldn't provide. And this was their only option. And this was a kinder safety net than letting someone beg on the street. Because you're providing for them. Yeah, they're working. But you're providing. You're making sure they have food. You're making sure they have shelter. So what's your relationship with your fellow man? Do you view them as worthy of looking after, of caring for? They're probably learning a skill at the same time as they're working. Do we think that this is a worse system than we have in America today, where we just throw people in housing? They live on the side of the road, under a bridge, begging. I don't think it is. I also don't think that we should buy and sell people. However, I think that having the ability to love someone, put them in a home, teach them a skill, and they do work and they get paid, I think is a far better way of doing things than, we'll let the government look after you. We don't care. We don't care about you at all. Because that's how we view a lot of poor people today, and it's not good. The going free at the 7th year does matter. They work for 6, and the 7th year they go free. I think that's also kind of a thing that maybe slavery in general could have been looked at in the 15th through 19th centuries. You don't get to own people forever and treat them like property and treat them like crap and beat them. What is your relationship to money? What is your relationship to other people, especially in regard to your faith? So the last few verses go back to the firstborn and how you treat firstborn males that are born of your herd and flock. You shall dedicate them to the Lord your God. And you shall do no work with the firstborn of your herd. They weren't allowed to pull a whatchamacallit that goes in the ground and plows your field, a plow. Nor share the firstborn of your flock, the sheep or the goats. You shall eat it, you and your household, before Yahweh your God, year by year at the place where the Lord will choose. If it has any blemish, if it's not perfect, if it's lame, blind, or has any serious blemish, you shall not sacrifice it to Yahweh your God. You shall eat it within your towns. Now this was, again, you go to where God said, you sacrifice it, and then you get to partake, and it's like a meal, thanking God for these things. And that's what you remember. It keeps you close to God. The unclean and the clean alike may eat it, if it has the blemish, if it's lame or blind, as though it were a gazelle or a deer. So, again, this was something that I think we talked about in Numbers, where the rules were going to change a little. Once they got into the land, instead of just sacrificing them, they could also eat, and it was like a peace offering in that regard. And 23 does matter. Only you shall not eat its blood. You shall pour it out on the ground like water. Again, there's numerous verses that talk about power in the blood. This was a sacrifice. It shouldn't be that controversial that they didn't eat the blood. Some people they think, oh, well, that's just weird. Like, if you understand that they had to learn what sacrifice was, what propitiation was, what that the blood from the animal that was sacrificed was replacing your blood that you deserved to make you right with God. And you learn that, and then you get to the cross, where the blood of Jesus that was spilt covers our sins, takes us from being filthy to white as snow. So this stuff all points toward what God is doing long term. This wasn't a surprise. This wasn't, an accident. You learn what a sacrifice is for, and then you learn what the ultimate sacrifice is for that makes us right. God gave of himself. Jesus was born, fully human, fully God, truly human, truly God, lived a perfect, sinless life, and then was our sacrifice so that we can be in a right relationship with God again. It's amazing how often this comes out in the Old Testament, but it's a good thing to remember. As we go into Friday and the weekend, maybe that's something that we can consider. What's my relationship with money? How do I relate to people? Am I thankful for what people had to go through to learn these things? And am I learning the same lessons? Have a good day.